It wasn't her perfume that I noticed first. It was the silence she left in a room when she walked out of it. I was 24, and she was the new curator for the gallery annex, a temporary space for overlooked artists. I was the temporary hand, hired to patch walls and hang lights. We were both fixtures, just on different clocks. Her name was Clara. She wore linen that whispered when she moved, and her confidence was a quiet, solid thing, like the weight of a good book. But I saw the crack once, a flicker, when she thought no one was looking. She'd stare at a painting not yet hung, her fingers tracing the edge of the canvas, and for a moment, she wasn't the curator. She was just there, lost. This afternoon, the annex was empty, bathed in the slow, golden honey of a dying sun. Dust motes danced in the light, and the only sound was the soft rustle of her notes. I was on a ladder, adjusting a spotlight on a melancholic landscape. A little to the left, her voice came from behind me, calm and low. "You're missing the sorrow in the upper corner." I shifted the light. The painted sky seemed to deepen, the clouds heavy with unshed rain. "Better," she said. She was closer now. I could feel her presence at my back, a change in the air pressure. I came down the ladder, and when I turned, she was right there, holding out a mug of coffee. Our fingers brushed during the exchange. It wasn't an accident. It was too slow, too deliberate. Her skin was cool, but the point of contact burned. "Thank you," I said, my voice rough from disuse. She didn't move back. Her eyes, the color of sea-worn glass, held mine. "You have a good eye for the weight of things." I took a sip. The coffee was bitter, too strong. I didn't care. "Just the lights." "No," she said softly, her gaze dropping to my hands, then back to my face. "Not just the lights." The air grew thick, charged with everything we hadn't said for weeks. The way I'd find her watching me from across the room. The way she'd always find a reason to be where I was working. The way I'd memorized the specific sound of her heels on the polished concrete floor. She opened her mouth to speak, to break the spell, to change the subject. I could see the professional mask sliding back into place. But then she stopped. Her eyes searched mine, and instead of stepping away, her hand came up, her fingers hovering near a smudge of dust on my cheek. The world narrowed to that space between her fingertips and my skin. The annex, the paintings, the entire city outside the windows, all of it fell away. There was only her breath, a little unsteady, and the question hanging in the warm, dusty air. And then the front door of the annex clicked open, the sound like a gunshot in the quiet. Clara's hand dropped. Her posture straightened, the vulnerability sealed away in an instant. But her eyes, wide and slightly startled, remained locked on mine, holding the echo of that almost touch, a silent scream in the suddenly shattered silence. The intruder was a courier with a clipboard, needing a signature for a delivery. Clara handled it with a smooth, distant efficiency I rarely saw, her voice regaining its polished curator tone. But when the man left, the silence he left behind was different. It was charged, fragile. She didn't look at me, instead busying herself with the stack of notes. "The lighting is perfect now." "Thank you," she said, the words formal, a wall being rebuilt. "It was your direction," I replied, my own voice too quiet. I wanted to ask about the almost touch. I wanted to ask about the look in her eyes before the door opened. But the words felt too clumsy, too young. So I just watched her. I watched the way her hand, the one that had almost touched my face, trembled slightly as she sorted papers. I'd heard things, of course. Whispers in the break room about her divorce. A messy, quiet thing that had left her with this annex and a reputation for being fiercely, sadly independent. I understood loneliness. I wore mine like an old jacket. Hers was a tailored coat, elegant but just as heavy. "People would talk," she said suddenly, as if reading my thoughts. She still wasn't looking at me, her focus on a manifest. "A woman my age, a boy your age. It's a cliché waiting for a punchline. I'm not a boy." The words came out sharper than I intended. Finally, she glanced up, a sad, knowing smile on her lips. "That's the problem, isn't it?" I moved then, crossing the space between us until I was standing beside her at the desk. I could feel the warmth from her body, could smell the faint, clean scent of her soap beneath the perfume. I saw the quick, subtle intake of her breath. "Let them talk," I whispered. Her eyes closed for a brief second, a flicker of pain crossing her features. "You have no idea the things they would say. That I'm desperate, that I'm robbing the cradle, that I'm having some kind of crisis." She opened her eyes, and they were glistening. "It's not you I'm pushing away. It's the narrative." My hand found its way to the desk, my pinky finger resting less than an inch from hers. I didn't touch her. I just let it sit there, a silent offer. "Their story isn't mine." She looked down at our almost touching hands, then back at my face. The professional mask was gone, completely this time, leaving only a raw, uncertain woman. Slowly, deliberately, she shifted her hand until the side of her little finger rested against mine. It was the smallest point of contact, a sliver of skin, but a current warm and undeniable passed between us. She didn't pull back. She just let it linger, her breath brushing against my cheek, her gaze holding mine in the quiet, electric space we had built for ourselves. The following week, the air in the annex was a live wire. Every glance was a sentence. Every accidental brush of our hands a paragraph. We were building a secret library between us, one silent, charged moment at a time. It was late, past closing. The main gallery was having a donor event, and the distant murmur of champagne flutes and polite laughter was a world away. We were in the back storage room, surrounded by canvases leaning against walls like sleeping giants. The excuse was inventory, but we both knew it was a lie. "This one," Clara said, her voice hushed. She pointed to a small, abstract painting, all swirling grays and a single defiant slash of gold. "It's been misplaced for months." I moved to help her, and in the narrow space between two towering stacks of art, we found ourselves face to face. There was no room to pass. Her shoulder brushed against my chest. We froze. I could see the rapid flutter of her pulse at the base of her throat. Her lips were slightly parted. My own heart was a drum against my ribs. I leaned in just a fraction. The world narrowed to the space between our mouths. The sharp buzz of her phone on a metal shelf made us jump apart as if scalded. She fumbled for it, her hands unsteady. "It's my sister," she breathed, her eyes wide with a panic that wasn't about the call. She's picking me up. She's outside." The spell was broken, replaced by a cold, sharp reality. Of course she had a life, a sister who picked her up, a world where I didn't exist. "Clara," I started, my voice rough. She shook her head, a gesture of pure anguish. This is the part where I'm supposed to be the adult, where I say this is a mistake." She looked at me, and the war in her eyes was terrifying. "But I look at you, and I forget all the reasons why." The main door to the annex creaked open. "Clara? You in here?" A woman's voice called out. It was the final, brutal interruption. Clara's face shut down, the raw emotion sealed away behind a mask of practiced calm. But as she moved to leave, her hand found mine in the dim light. Not a brush, not a pinky. Her whole hand, gripping mine, tight and desperate, for one single, heart-stopping second. Then she let go and walked out to meet her sister, leaving me alone in the silent, shadowed room with the ghost of her grip still burning on my skin, closer to her and further from having her than I had ever been. The next day, the annex was a tomb. Clara was a ghost of efficiency, her movements precise and distant. She wouldn't meet my eyes. The memory of her hand gripping mine felt like a brand, and her silence was its own form of screaming. I couldn't focus. I was rehanging the same small, gray and gold abstract 3 times, my hands fumbling with the wire. Every time she passed, the air grew thin. The breaking point came when she stood to give me instructions, her voice clipped and professional, and I saw it, the faint tremor in her hand as she pointed. I snapped. "Stop," I said, the word louder than I intended. She froze, her eyes wide. "Just stop," I repeated, my voice dropping to a whisper. I crossed the room until I was standing right in front of her. Stop pretending this isn't happening. She took a half step back, her spine hitting the edge of the desk. We can't. I don't care. I was so close I could see the flecks of silver in her gray eyes, could feel the warmth of her breath. I don't care about your sister, or the people who would talk, or the damn narrative. Her resolve was crumbling. I could see it in the way her lips trembled, in the shallow rise and fall of her chest. You should, she whispered, her voice breaking. I'm a mess. You're all I think about. The confession hung in the air, raw and undeniable. My hand came up not to grab but to ask. My fingers brushed a stray strand of hair from her cheek, tucking it behind her ear. My thumb traced the line of her jaw. Her skin was impossibly soft. She leaned into the touch, her eyes fluttering closed for a second, a silent surrender that sent a jolt straight through me. She was leaning against the desk, and I was leaning into her, our bodies not quite touching but feeling every point of heat between us. My other hand rested on the desk beside her hip, caging her in. I could feel the faint tremors running through her. Leo, she breathed, my name a prayer and a protest on her lips. That was it. The last thread of my control snapped. I lowered my head, my gaze dropping to her mouth. Her lips parted. Her eyes were dark, full of fear and a longing that mirrored my own. The world dissolved into the scent of her, the feel of her breath on my skin, the electric space between our mouths. My lips were a whisper away from hers. And then she said it, her voice a shattered whisper against my lips. I'm leaving. The words didn't make sense. They were just sounds, foreign and wrong. I went still, my body frozen in the act of leaning in. What? She pushed gently at my chest, and I stumbled back, the space between us feeling like a chasm. She wrapped her arms around herself, her knuckles white. The annex. The grant wasn't renewed. They're closing it. My contract. It ends in 2 weeks. I'm leaving the city. The truth landed like a physical blow. This wasn't about age or gossip or cold feet. This was an expiration date. Our entire world, this quiet, charged universe we'd built, had a scheduled end. You knew. The question came out hoarse. All this time you knew? I found out a month ago, she admitted, her gaze fixed on the floor. I thought if I kept it professional it would hurt less. For both of us. A month. She had known for a month. Through every lingering look, every charged silence, every touch that felt like a promise, she had known this was temporary. The intimacy we'd shared suddenly felt like a performance, and I felt like a fool. So this, I gestured between us, my hands slicing through the air, was just what? A way to pass the time. Her head snapped up, her eyes flashing with a pain so sharp it silenced me. Don't. You know that's not true. Do I? I shot back, the hurt twisting into something darker, more desperate. I stepped close to her again, not with tenderness, but with a raw need for the truth. My hand shot out, not to touch her face, but to brace against the desk behind her, caging her in. Our bodies were almost touching. I could feel the heat radiating from her, see the frantic pulse in her neck. If it was real, you would have told me. She didn't shrink away. She met my glare, her breath coming in short gasps. I was trying to protect you. I don't need your protection. My voice was too loud in the quiet room. I was trembling with the force of it. I need you to stop running. The air crackled. Our faces were inches apart. The argument a thin veil for the torrent of want and fear raging beneath. Her eyes dropped to my mouth. My body was screaming to close the distance, to kiss her until the words and the leaving and the pain didn't exist anymore. She lifted a trembling hand, her fingers hovering near my jaw. Leo? I caught her wrist, not hard but firmly. My thumb pressed against her frantic pulse. A decision hung in the balance. To walk away from the inevitable heartbreak, or to run straight into it. I made my choice. 2 weeks. I whispered, my voice low and final. Then you're not the only one who gets to decide what happens next. The 2 weeks bled away, Each day a strange, suspended reality. We didn't speak of her leaving again. Instead, we worked in a silent pact, packing the art, dismantling the world we'd inhabited. The air was thick with everything we weren't saying. The final day arrived, gray and heavy with unshed rain. The annex was a shell, just echoing spaces and blank walls. A single crate remained by the door. Clara stood by the large window, watching the first drops streak the glass. "It's done," she said, her voice hollow. I came to stand behind her, close enough to see the tension in her shoulders, close enough to feel the warmth of her body. I didn't touch her. Not yet. "It doesn't have to be," I said, my voice low. She turned slowly. The confident curator was gone. In her place was a woman stripped bare, her eyes full of a vulnerable, terrifying hope. "What are we doing, Leo? I'm not letting you be the one that got away." A soft, broken sound escaped her. I finally reached for her, my hands coming up to cradle her face. My thumbs stroked her cheeks, wiping away tears she hadn't let fall. Her eyes fluttered closed, and she leaned into my touch, her own hands coming to rest on my wrists, her grip tight, anchoring. "This is a terrible idea," she whispered, but she was leaning closer, her body swaying into mine. "I know. People will talk. Let them. I could hurt you. You already will if you leave." Our faces were inches apart, our breath mingling. The world outside the rain-streaked window blurred into nothing. This was the choice, the precipice. There was no more professional distance, no more age gap, no more narrative. There was only her breath on my lips and the frantic, honest beat of her pulse under my fingers. Her eyes opened, and in their gray depths, I saw the surrender, not of defeat, but of choice. She was choosing the mess. She was choosing the risk. She was choosing me. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, I closed the final, impossible distance. My lips met hers. It wasn't a frantic, desperate crash. It was a confirmation. A slow, deep, soul-searching kiss that held all the longing, the regret, the silent conversations, and the unspoken promises of the last few months. Her hands slid from my wrists to my shoulders, then into my hair, pulling me closer as if she were drowning and I was air. I felt her tremble, a full-body shudder of release, and I held her tighter, my arms wrapping around her, fusing her to me. When we finally broke apart, breathless and forever changed, we didn't speak. We just rested our foreheads together, our eyes closed, breathing each other in. There was no more confusion, no more doubt. The conflict was over. We had chosen, and we had chosen each other. The rain fell in a steady, gentle rhythm against the windows, wrapping the empty annex in a soft, private world. For a long time, we just stood there, foreheads touching, hands clasped between our pounding hearts. The kiss had changed the air, making it easier to breathe, yet every breath felt new. She was the first to speak, her voice a hushed, wondering thing. "I spent so long being afraid of this." "Of what?" I whispered, my thumb stroking the back of her hand. "Of feeling this young." She let out a shaky laugh. "Of wanting something so much it terrifies you." I thought I was past that. I leaned back just enough to see her face, the faint lines at the corners of her eyes, the quiet strength, the new, unguarded softness in her gaze. "It's not about age," I said. "It's about being seen." Her eyes glistened. She nodded, a single, slow dip of her chin that held a universe of understanding. All the hesitation, the fear of perception, it melted away in that look. It was just us, Clara and Leo, not an older woman and a younger man, just two people who had found a startling, impossible connection. I led her to the lone wooden crate, and we sat, side by side, our shoulders and thighs pressed together. My arms stayed around her, her head resting on my shoulder. We watched the rain paint silver trails down the glass. "What happens on Monday?" I asked, the practical world trying to edge its way back in. She tilted her head to look at me, a small, sure smile on her lips. "I don't know," she said, and for the first time it didn't sound like fear. It sounded like a promise. But we'll figure it out. Together. I bent and pressed a soft, lingering kiss to her forehead. She sighed, a contented, heavy sound, and snuggled closer, her hand finding its way to my chest, resting over my heart. There were no more words needed. The silence was no longer awkward or charged. It was comfortable, full. It was the sound of a story not ending, but truly beginning. We sat there in the dim light, intertwined, the past packed away and the future. For once, feeling not like a threat, but like a gift we would finally open together. Did you feel the chemistry between Clara and Leo? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Let us know in the comments.